As a Surge member, you'll unlock access to resources that build confidence, motivation, and mental well-being to empower girls to stay in the game today and pave the way for their future success. Up your game with free professional development and curriculum resources for coaches and athletes. Foster community and connection with VIP access to girls' sporting events, coaching forums, giveaways, and workshops hosted by industry-leading partners. Make waves with exclusive Surge branding packages, designs, and apparel. Recognize and celebrate with special awards like Team of the Season and Athlete of the Season to uplift and honor your female athletes. Unlock exclusive offers, including new product sneak peeks, promos, and member-only Surge stores. Fresh content designed to empower female athletes will be added to the platform every month. So, together, we can help power girls forward.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar. We're so happy to be here with you guys. Today's webinar is co-hosted with women leaders in sports. From the locker room to the boardroom, the power of sports and leadership. Today's discussion will be a panel discussion moderated by Patti Phillips, the CEO of Women Leaders in Sports. Before we get started, I want to thank you all for being here today. We know as coaches, parents, educators, and athletes, you're all extremely busy, so we really appreciate it. I'll now pass things over to Patti to kick things off for today's conversation. Welcome, Patti.
Yep, thanks, Saxon, and thanks everybody for joining us. I love that intro, Power Girls Forward. That's what we're here to do. We want to talk about how we can do that together. So excited to be with you. I am the CEO of Women Leaders in Sports. And honestly, we're an organization that believes in the power of women working and leading in sports. And that starts with girls and their participation in sports. So I want to introduce our outstanding panel. We have just some massive rock stars with us, and I'm super thankful that they all took time out of their day to join us. So I want to start with Coach Courtney Banghart in her 6th season. I cannot believe it's been 6 years as the head women's basketball coach at UNC. And by the way, I'm going to have you all introduce yourselves as well a little bit, but I want to add, because I know Courtney wouldn't say it, I think she's one of the very few coaches in America that had an undefeated season when she was at Princeton, 30-0. She did get some inbounds plays for me that year, so I don't know if I get a point for that or not, but congratulations. And Court, thanks so much for being here. Val Johnson, who's the Deputy Athletic Director, Senior Woman Administrator, and Deputy Title IX Coordinator at the University of Oregon. And Val has been a 2-time athletic director at Portland State and then at a D2 school, I believe. I wrote it down, Val.
Willamette.
Yeah. And has been super involved. Val, literally a game changer in the industry of administrators in college sports. So super thrilled that you're here with us, Val. Thank you. And then Amanda Vandervolt. Amanda runs the U.S. Super League, which has a new name. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But she's a soccer player, a soccer coach. She's been working in soccer for over 20 years, and she's worked on the youth, high school, and collegiate professional game. And she previously was the chief women's football officer at FIFPro and also worked at in Major League Soccer. So as you can see, these women are badasses and know what's going on. So I'm so excited to be with all of you. I do want to start this conversation. I did a one-liner for each of you. We do want to hear about, first of all, what sport you played. I kind of let the cat out of the bag on Amanda. And but what sport you played growing up, and then also just your career stops. And what was it about participating in sports that helped you get where you are? Let's start there. And Val, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, well, great. Well, I'm going to be the easy layup on this one. So this is where I probably am a little bit of an outlier. So first of all, thanks to Patti and Women Leaders in Sports, and of course, BSN Surge for having me on this. I will start out by saying I am the one that you would just really love to have on your team for the entertainment factor. I am going to be that teammate that probably is not going to bring a lot to the competitive excellence of your team, but I am definitely going to bring the entertainment. I played some really mean JV volleyball when I was at Orland High School.
I love it.
Population of like 3,000. So everyone, if you grew up in a small town, you know what that means. It just means everyone got to play because it's just what your parents made you do. That was pretty much the highlight of my athletics career. Still, my friends to this day cannot believe I have a profession in athletics. When I started this, they were like, they do know you aren't athletic, right? They did get that memo. But I think the thing that I learned the most is obviously that teamwork, that camaraderie, that support, that leadership is really what I gained from that experience early on. I definitely, as a small town girl, I mean, you definitely learn that in a small town, everything is about what happens on a Friday night in your hometown gym or that field, and everyone rallies around it. So it's all about that community. And I really took that into my profession, especially once I got into higher ed, about what athletics, specifically in the collegiate setting, does for the university. And not just from the student athlete component, but also from the admissions component, obviously from the alumni engagement, and then also the community engagement. And so I've really taken it from that lens of what it means to be a student athlete, what it means to engage with the university, with the community, and then be able to play a really small piece of that to encourage those that do have that athletic talent, like the panelists that are here with me, and really make sure that they are put in a great spotlight to be able to bring that to the forefront. So that's a little bit about my background there. But, you know, I was able to go on from a career in student development and higher ed, so the student affairs piece. My first gig in athletics was that I was an academic advisor. So I was the ones that Coach Courtney is like, you need to go see Val. Val's going to make sure we get you right academically, because if you're not going to be able to see this court, and we're not going to be able to go undefeated at Princeton. Princeton, I don't know how many issues we might have had, but yeah, so that's where I started. And then that was at Boise State. And then I was really fortunate to really pursue a career in athletics, as Patti had mentioned, as the athletic, as SWA at Portland State. I went on to be the athletic director at Willamette. And for anyone on this call, which we were a BSN school when I was at Willamette. It's
Bonus
Willamette.
point.
Yeah, Willamette, damn it. That's what we used to say. So I was there, then I went back to Portland State, and then had the honor of coming to work with Rob Mullins here at the University of Oregon just about 2.5 years ago. So it's been a great ride. Love working with student athletes, and really love seeing that progression from anywhere from the high school age all the way through collegiate athletics.
Val, first of all, you're the perfect example about, honestly, it's not about being a lifelong athlete, as the Nike ad says, if you have a body and you're moving. And actually, when you start when you're young, that's what it's about. And so, but I do have a question for you. Did you always, like, did you know you wanted to go into kind of athletics administration early on?
No, not at all, Patti. And I think we've talked about this. No, not one bit whatsoever. Really, the joke with me is that I get a little attached. So to anyone that's on this call, it kind of kills me that I can't see everyone that's on this call. But for anyone that I do know that might be on this call, it's once you are in my world, it's hard for anyone to leave my world. So Coach Courtney and Amanda, you're in it now.
We're in it.
You're in it, and I have no strangers. But that's what I loved about collegiate athletics, is really from that recruiting process. And as we were talking about early on this call, is that now, especially in this new era of being a collegiate athlete, they really don't leave that often. I mean, we were talking earlier about how now student athletes are petitioning to stay for a 5th year, depending upon their injury
Or 6
situation, or 6.
8. I mean,
For me, it's great, because then I
Yeah.
get to establish those relationships with not only the student athletes, but their families, and of course, you know, our coaches as well. And that's really what I fell in love with. And I love that. And I love that that way of being able to represent not only the institution, but have a really strong relationship with the community that I get to live in. And so it's a really unique way to bridge something that's just really fun with an educational aspect, and also the service aspect of what you could do for your community.
Yeah, Val, and this is a great message for everyone on here. Val works at one of the biggest brands in college sports, and actually, and when we asked her about this, she goes, "Remember, I'm not a collegiate athlete." We said, "Actually, that's perfect, because you know, you can aspire to do anything, and the world of sports is a community, and everyone helps each other get there." So it's great. So Val, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Court, Coach, do I have to call you Coach Banghart, or
No,
can I
Court is
call you?
good.
I call her Court, but Courtney, what was your sport? And talk about what age were you when you got involved with basketball? Actually, you also played soccer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I call you Party P. They don't know that. So you can call me Court. I would say, well, first off, Val, I'm so thrilled that now I get to be in your world. But what Patty said is right, is that we need people in the rooms you're in who just truly love sport and value the women's side of it. And so the rooms you're in, I'm sure, have been really fascinating over the last 5 years. And as someone who is kind of in the trenches with you in a different way, I know the work you're doing is really valuable. So thanks. But yes, I maybe on the other side of your athletic experience, I was sort of the opposite. I'm also from a very small town in New Hampshire. And so I sort of had to play all the sports in order to field the teams. And fortunately, it was the thing that I'm probably best at, is the things that sport requires you to be, which is coordinated and have some courage and some grit and things like that. So I was a high school soccer player. I was actually an All-American in high school. I was the state tennis champion in singles and doubles. And then I was also, obviously, I played basketball all the way through, and ended up actually, I was doing all my visits. And my parents said that, sports are not a vocation. So you need to pick a school based on their academic background. And I ended up in the Ivy League and was going to play soccer in the Ivy League. And that coach at the time got a job out at Stanford and suggested that I go with him to Stanford. And I said, I'm going to call the basketball coach. So I was a better soccer player, but I've always loved basketball. And so for all the youth sport fans out there, the sport specialization is not my thing. I really find that I had to utilize all different parts of my excellence in order to grow, quite honestly, as a leader. Anyway, I majored in neuroscience in college because again, sports were not a vocation. And so I was going to be a woman in the sciences. And when it really came down to it, sports has always been the thing that I've really valued and been best at. And so I went down to Washington, D.C. and was a high school athletic director and a basketball and tennis coach for a couple of years, and ended up parlaying that into a graduate assistantship at my alma mater, Dartmouth College up in New Hampshire. And then at the age of 29 was offered the head job at Princeton. And, I think for the women on the call, there were many of my peers who suggested that taking a head coaching job before you were ready was career suicide. Because if you're not successful, perhaps you don't get recycled in some of the ways that the men do. And I think sport taught me a lot. It sort of taught me the grit and the courage that it takes to believe in yourself. And so I sort of, being fired, I wasn't afraid of it. I was more afraid of the regret of not trying it. And I figured I was young enough that I still could build equity in something else if I wasn't very good at it. But so sports really has been, I was there for 12 years as the head coach at Princeton, had a lot of opportunities to go other places, and no place really felt right to me until North Carolina called. And North Carolina has some similar things that fit me in terms of a high academic kind of global brand with athletics that's really valued on the women's and men's side. And so I ended up taking the opportunity here, and that was before the portal, it was before the NIL, before COVID. So the last 6 years has been really fascinating and has stretched me in ways that, that I've had to lean on the courage and grit that I learned as a youth sports guy, per se.
Okay, I love your story, Court, but I just really need to follow up with neuroscience. Really? Neuroscience. I mean, okay.
It was what I was most interested in, quite honestly. Everything was hard there. And so I took biology my very first fall. And I took chemistry in the winter, and then I started taking psychology, and that just kind of moved through that path. So yeah.
That's great. Actually, I love it. So again, many different paths, and we're going to come back to the question about how the sports absolutely impacted you as leaders. But Amanda, we want to hear your story. Make sure you come off mute as well.
I'm absolutely, what a delight to be on this panel with both of you. This is my first time meeting Val and Court, and it is tremendous to hear your stories. I relate so much to so many things that you've shared along your journeys. I was a young head coach in college and have made some choices along the way. Val, you described a lot of choices you've made along the way that have kind of led you to where you are today, and I just relate so much. So Patti, thank you for bringing this and group together. But my name is Amanda Vandervoort. I'm the president of the USL Super League, which is Division I women's professional soccer. We launched in August last year of 2024 and just completed our inaugural season, June 14th, 2 weeks ago. So we are a new professional sports league in the United States. And I think it's a really interesting moment in the growth of professional sports, whether it's new volleyball league, new leagues, multiple women's football, flag football growing, women's professional soccer. And to be in the women's professional sports landscape is a really, really cool place right now. But the truth is, we do need more women leaders in women's professional sport. So my journey started, soccer's my sport. Grew up in Tucson, Arizona, where I started playing quite late in my life. I was probably 13 when I started playing soccer, and I just loved it because I'm very competitive. I think a lot like you, was athletic, and I picked it up quickly. But for me, it was a social component to be around my friends, which, Val, I'm guessing in your JV comedy days, had a lot to do with keeping you in the sport. So I I went to college on a scholarship, University of Wyoming, back in the late 90s, which was early days of the kind of women's sports movement, and especially soccer was just starting to grow in the collegiate game. I stayed in college. I went to the College of New Jersey, actually, for a master's degree, right down the street from Princeton.
Yeah.
I lived
Let's
in Pennington,
go. Let's go.
CCNJ. Yeah, I was the graduate assistant there for a couple years before I was offered the head women's job at NYU Division III NCAA when I was 23 years old, and moving into New York City and at 23 as the head coach of a program like that was a huge mountain to climb, and I think a risk in my career. But also I was like, I would rather regret the choices I make than the ones that I don't.
Mhm.
And so I went for it. And I loved every minute until I decided that coaching on, like, having my feet on the grass was no longer for me, and I was ready for a role in administration. So I found my way into the women's professional game through WPS, which was the third women's professional soccer league in the United States, second women's professional soccer league in the United States. In 2008, I helped launch the Chicago Red Stars, which are now the Chicago Stars in the NWSL, and have been in soccer my whole career. So Patty, you listed off a couple of my stops along the way.
Yeah.
There was, like I said, coaching, but then I was doing I was the head of marketing, website, and camps when I started at the Chicago Red Stars. And then I went in 2009 to the league office, and I ran social media and digital content. Back in 2009, I mean, I think we just launched Facebook at that point. But what I felt at the time was a tragedy of women's sports, but became an opportunity, was that no one in the media wanted to cover us. It was impossible to get anyone to cover women's sports. So yeah, I think Twitter had just launched not too long ago, and there were like these social networks starting to form. And I remember back then thinking, you know what, if we just went direct to fans and used these social communities as a way to inspire and grow fandom, there could be a different path here for building the women's game. And so that became my career. I really grew the sport of soccer through digital and social media and direct to consumer marketing. So I was at Major League Soccer for 10 years as the vice president of fan engagement, and moved from there to Europe, where I was the chief women's football officer for the global players union called FIFPro. I think all those different experiences as a coach, as a marketer, as a player union representative, all lined up perfectly to bring me to where I am today now as the president of a professional sports league and women's soccer league. So yeah, that's a bit of my journey, and I think being among this group I find it, I light up hearing your guys' journeys, because I think it sounds like sports has had a similar impact on our lives, but very different at the same time. And I think that's what's so beautiful about it.
Yeah, and so thank you for that, Amanda. Amazing experiences. There's some themes I'm hearing from all of you. First of all of you took risks. And again, we're talking about how our experiences, playing sports when we're young actually helps us in the boardroom or helps us become leaders. You're all leading in different ways. So can you talk about when you got that first leadership experience or first leadership offer, whether it was coaching, working, Val, you talked on that campus, whatever it was, or maybe for you, Val, it's your first opportunity to be an athletic director, those big jobs. what helped you get over that fear to know you could do it? And what did you pull from your playing days, growing up playing sport? How did you know that you could do it? Or honestly, how did you know you could figure it out? Which is really what we're all doing, is figuring it out. So Court, let's start with you this time.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, when I was named the head coach at Princeton at 29, I'd only been an assistant for 4 years, and it was for who I played for. So I didn't have a lot of voices. I didn't have a lot of experience to tap into. I didn't have a lot of administrations to learn from. And we all know experience is really valuable. Um, it 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 became, I thought, Amanda, you worded it so well. I was more afraid of the decisions I wouldn't make, right? Then I felt like if I stayed as an assistant to then ultimately try to get a head coaching job, who knew when that was going to be? And so if someone thought I was ready, I guess sometimes you need someone else sometimes to tell you that, right? And so, and then how did I do it? I think the absence of fear is a joke, right? There's none of us are operating what we're doing with an absence of fear. There are opportunities to fear and succeed every day and to fail, and we navigate that all the time. And so, did I know how to do it? No, but I knew I'd figure it out, and how, just over prepare. I think I say this a lot, but your authenticity is your superpower. And I knew that the only thing I knew I could do was be me. And so I was going to do that in my relationships, in my hiring, in kind of the way in which I ran through the various things I knew had to be done because I was living it, in my recruiting relationships. And, I didn't have a lot of them because I was an assistant for so short. And you build them. Like, I don't know, you don't need them. You just start building them. And so I think there were certainly days where I don't know exactly how to do this, but I do think, ultimately, if you wait till you're ready, to have kids, you'll never have them, right? If you wait till you're ready to take a big job, you'll never get one. You just sort of have to, if an opportunity presents itself, trust that you're going to figure it out. And that sounds really easy, but I'm doing that now. I mean, again, I took this job and there was no such thing as COVID. My very first summer of this job, first time ever offering a scholarship, all the things, it's COVID. I can't even go off campus, right, to recruit. And then the next summer is the transfer portal. And then the next summer is NIL. And I got into coaching because I don't like math, quite honestly. And now all I do is math, right, to try to figure out how this all works. And so I think that's the biggest thing I would say is that, like, it's like when you're learning soccer or learning basketball, you don't know how to do it. You start to learn it. And I think that's sort of, I didn't know how to play tennis until I learned how to play it. And I didn't learn how to run a basketball program until I did it. And I hope that the women on this call or the women that hear it moving forward aren't waiting for their chance to have it figured out. I hope they're leaning into the opportunity to figure it out. That's what I would say.
Amen. You got to figure it out. I always say you never know how to do the job you get until you do the job. And women, we always want to wait till we know everything. So I love that. The absence of fear is a joke. Great. What about you, Amanda? Any thoughts? You took all these jobs. Hell, you moved to Amsterdam.
I did, yeah.
That's a great city, though. I mean, that's
it is good.
That's a big move. And so there had to be these angst of fear. So how do we what are we drawing on to help us move forward in these roles?
Yeah, I think I wrote that down too. Doing is learning. I think that's so insightful to me because it is every job I've had now outside of coaching, every job that I've had in the industry, which is soccer, is the only industry I've been in, to be fair. I'm the first person to do it. So there hasn't been I haven't filled an open position. I've created new jobs everywhere I've gone. Social media wasn't a thing. So I said, let's do this. And we went hard at social media, and direct to consumer marketing in sports was a new concept really when I was at Major League Soccer. So really understanding consumer behaviors and how you lean into that. So um, I think operating, there's always fear, but operating with that it's okay that it doesn't go perfectly, and that mistakes are going to happen and failures are part of learning and getting better, and accepting feedback along the way. I think I've struggled along the way with taking feedback very personally, as opposed to taking it as an opportunity to learn and get better for the next time, which I think every day I'm still learning that kind of skill. It's a skill, but you got to practice it. And for me, it's a lot about I don't know. I would say acknowledging that it's okay not to be perfect.
Yep.
It's, and that fear is an okay place to be in, but it's not an okay place to come from. Like come from confidence and be okay with it when it's not perfect. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
yeah, and
No,
I'm an over preparer too. I think one piece of advice I do give that was part of that I would suggest as part of when I did take when I was offered that first big job, which NYU, the coach of NYU to me at 23 was a big job.
yeah.
But before I even got offered it, I remember one of my mentors recommended to me to write out a book with all my practice plans, a full year's training session, all the uh, like places I was going to go recruiting, all the tournaments, like what my letter was to my recruits, the first letter I send, the follow-up letter. Like I had a whole binder, like back then, it was the early 2000s. It was a binder back then of my plan for year one. I didn't know. I was 23, but I was pulling it together from different people and I was asking experiences and insights and putting this plan together. And when I walked into my interview, I put it on the athletic director's desk and I said, I know I don't have a lot of experience, but I'm ready for this job and I've done the work and I'm ready for this. And then that became my Bible, my plan as I then got into the job. So at least I had that plan ready. I do think it was part of why I was offered the job with very little
Yeah. I'd
experience
hire
in
you
the
in a
first
heartbeat. If
place.
you gave me a plan for a year, like you're hired. Let's go.
But then doing that work, then that became I call it my kitchen table. The people that I keep really close to me that are advisors. And so
Yeah.
the people who helped me put that plan together, then were the ones I called when I was like,
Right.
oh, this is happening. What do I do? Oh, this is happening. And that group of people who helped me kind of prepare to even get the job were then the ones that I could call on later. So the fear kind of dissipated when I knew there was a phone I could ring or someone with experience that I could call about particular issues.
I love it. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we all have our kitchen table, our kitchen sink, whatever it might be, but putting a year plan together for the interview, that's a great tip, everybody. Over prepare for sure. Okay, Val, what about you? Like, how did you get over that kind of fear hump or, that first big job? It's like, I haven't done it yet. How did you help yourself get over that hump?
Well, I mean, frankly, I mean, I feel like I'm in it right now. Just to be
Yeah.
honest with everyone on this call is, it's like, even though I've been in the profession, it's crazy. Every time I look at the date, I think, oh my gosh, I've been in collegiate athletics for well over 20 years. I always go by how old my oldest is. I mean, and she just turned 22 and I started when she was born. And which is crazy because you would think, oh, you got it figured out. But much like Coach was saying, the last 5 years, it's like, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? Like, so we have no idea what's happening. So even when, I came here to Oregon, and that was 2.5 years ago, we were solid in the Pac-12.
Yep.
You know, Oregon was in a great spot here out west. And I thought, oh, this is great. I'll figure out the Pac-12, figure out the Power Five. And that's fine. I had always been at smaller institutions, I've been at an FCS school, so I understood that. I've done contract work, hiring head coaches, those kind of things. But, there's always the nuances of, learning a new level of things. And within months, we were leaving the Pac-12. We were going to the Big Ten. Geography, not my strong suit. So you all are bonding over like NYU and Princeton location. I would totally have to get a map out to figure that out because I'm a true West Coaster. I had to figure out like where were we even going to go play? How were we going to get there? All the things, and then you add on all the other things. Much we had just figured out the transfer portal, and now we're figuring out NIL and rev share. So I feel like I'm somewhat in it right now, and I think the best thing, much to like you two were saying, is you don't know what you don't know. Everyone around you doesn't know what they don't know either. So every time I open up the D1 ticker, I'm like, no one knows what you're talking about. No one does. And you really do lean on, just like what Amanda was saying, who's at your kitchen table. So it's like, what are you trying to navigate there? No two places are the same. So how we do it at Oregon is going to be very different than how UNC is doing it. But there's going to be some similarities. but there's going to be some differences as well. So you could always look for the best practices, but I think it's just that awareness of we're all learning this together, or we're at different phases, and how can we support each other. I do think, especially of where we are as women in this industry, it is so nice to have great people around you, and not just women, but men as well who are in this profession, or not even in the profession. I have people that are in different industries that are able to give great insight. I mean, Amanda, already some of the things you're talking about, I'm like, oh my gosh, we would have so many great things that we could learn from how you all are doing things, because we're edging closer and closer to that, professional model there, and like just kind of what can we learn from that. And I always just think if you approach it with that learning mindset of, today I'm going to come into the office and I start off with my to-do list. Does it ever actually happen the way that I plan it? No. But I do think it's great to kind of lean on those past experiences and what are your strengths and your skill sets, and that kind of is what gets you through your day to day. But then every single day, and this is probably where I probably had a little bit of coachability in me, is what am I going to learn today to make myself better for tomorrow? And I think even if we approach that sometimes even in our work as leaders, is even with our team, I can't expect my team that they're going to know exactly what's going to happen tomorrow, but how are we going to get a little bit better today to make tomorrow better? And that's really the approach that we've utilized here, especially in this new era that we're working on to get to have things implemented by July 1, which the clock is ticking. No stress at all, right, Courtney?
None. You're doing great.
No
Lots
stress
of
whatsoever.
clarity. Yeah, no, we're operating in lots of clarity.
So
Yeah.
clear. It's so clear. And I'm sure your administrators are giving you very clear answers.
Very.
Just what
And
I'm
so are the
giving my
recruits.
coaches.
The
Oh,
recruits
yeah.
are also giving me very clear signs.
Very clear. Very clear. And I'm sure they're following all instructions very
Mhm.
clearly. So
Yeah.
any of you on this call that are in that high school space thinking it might be easier to work with the students when they get to college, no, not so much. But it's just different, so I think to that it's just a matter of just always just leaning on kind of like, I always say, your compass. And Patty, I probably learned this from some women leaders thing I was at. What's your core values? Follow your compass. What's your true north? But it makes sense. It's like at the end of the day, I keep telling myself, and coach, if you need this pep talk, I'm more than happy to call and give it to you, because I say it to my coaches every single day. At the end of the day, they are still 18 to 22. I don't care what their contract says. I don't care what car they're driving. They are still here going to school to be neuroscientists who are going to turn into basketball coaches. And we are still trying to teach them to be good people.
To pay their parking tickets. I got you.
That's
They
right.
might not do that because guess what? My college age daughter does not do that either. But that's what we're still here for. And we're just trying to figure out everything else along the way. Patty, I probably didn't even answer.
No, so many. Well, first of all, what we're hearing here, and I think this is really important. Everything's figure outable. And honestly, I think this is life now. It's not just collegiate athletics. I think Amanda would say the same thing. The pace of life and change is across all industries. And it's a skill that actually people need to learn at a younger age now, because it impacts their ability to work and lead, in any industry. And so all of you are leading people. Courtney, you're a coach, you have your team of players, but you also have a team of coaches. Valerie and Amanda, you have teams of people that report to you. If you could give the coaches and administrators on this call some tips about what they can do or what they should be teaching the girls that are working with them, what would you say? And so they're trying to prepare those younger girls for life after. Again, that's the whole point of participating in sports. What tips would you all give? And this time, Amanda, I'm going to start with you.
One of the things that I think, one of the I don't know, areas that I find girls or women underprepared in is conflict resolution and resiliency. So those are two areas that I would recommend thinking about and focusing on, especially the conflict resolution, like being able to have difficult conversations, and understanding how to achieve outcomes. through, through conflict resolution yourself, and dealing with things, how to properly deal with things, conflict, or disagreement. So, we talk a lot about communication and leadership and all that stuff, but I think those are areas that we see in the professional game even that are real challenges that I think younger, if we can start to address those particular skill sets at an earlier and younger age, I think it will benefit in our world, professional women's sports greatly, but I think our industry and women leadership in particular.
Absolutely. Resilience is one of our words. I don't think it's behind me. It's on my little bracelet I'm wearing today. It
Nice.
is, I think it is the ultimate key, truly, and especially for women, especially with all this change. So resilience is huge. Val, what else? What do you think? What can these coaches and administrators be talking and thinking about with the girls that are in their programs?
Yeah, I mean, and I think, whether they're high school age or even college age right now, and kind of speaking as a mom of a newfound college graduate as well. And then I feel like I'm in the full mode of having a whole department full of the same demographic. Coach, I do pray for you on a nightly basis. I don't having my daughter add into that demographic tip the scales for me this
Me
past
too. Me too. Lots of praying.
I mean, much to this resiliency, it's that grit factor. And this is where I start realizing, gosh, I've totally tipped the scales on God, I sound old. I do think I think this new generation has so much more outside influence than what we ever did.
Oh, for sure.
Boy, do we sound old. But I do believe it. Gosh, I hate when I start feeling this way, but yeah, I do believe it. And I think if I had $1 for every time I told my daughter this, that's also an old saying, is she needs to own her own story. And when I say she, all of the she's that are out there in this world, she needs to own her own story. And I think through the power of sport, I mean, I just had a golfer standing at my door just a little while ago, is, that's where sport, I think, is able to teach young women so much because they learn that through sport. I can't, as that golfer, she can't control how someone else is golfing that day compared to her. She could only control her game. That's it. Mm-hmm. If they can take that and just apply it to the rest of their lives, they will be so much better off in their mind, their body, their spirit, everything. And if we could if we could all figure that out, put a trademark on it and sell it, we could all retire today, ladies. Like,
let's do it. I like it.
But and I do think that's where that power of sport really does come in, is those lessons that they learn through sport, through practice, that time and all of those things that we already know, but that innate feeling of I could only control what I can control on the court right now. So as you know, coach, like I can only control how good my pass is going to be. I can't control whether or not my teammate's going to be in the right spot to receive. I can't control that.
Yeah.
She can. I can't. Mm-hmm. So if they can figure out how to apply that to the rest of their lives, oh gosh.
I love the word that, like, she needs to own her own story. And we talk about that.
Just own it.
I would say that other things I think that are really important is don't assume everybody understands the power of team, right? Because like you said, they grew up in a different time where there is value to a personal brand, and there is, and so when you're leading young people, I think communicating the power of team and emphasizing the power of team, I think is really important as opposed to assuming that they understand the power of it, right? I think also with working with young people, really celebrating the courage it takes to fail in front of your friends, right? And there's such an advantage to that. We know that because we have the experience, and it's don't wish it for them, but communicate it to them, I think, so that we understand the barriers to that, right? Like like this is athletics is the first place they're going to fail in front of anybody else, right? And so like even your grades, everyone like has them in a little sealed envelope where it's emailed to you directly in school, right? And so I think when you're working with young people, really celebrate their courage, because the result, like you said, the result is affected by so many other people's stories, right? And so you don't have ultimate control, and that takes courage, right? And then I think the last thing that I would say is the power of relationships. I mean, this is I have a lot of grace for this population of young people who they have more interactions than they do relationships, right? And so we have an obligation as their mentors and leaders and people of consistency in their lives to show up for them all the time, because a good relationship feels more special than ever because they have so few of them. You know, when they're waiting for the bus, you know, they're on their phones or they're in their headphones. Whereas the rest of us, that's how we met some of our best friends, because we were all waiting at the same time. Our parents were always late, you know, or whatever. And so I think those three things, you know, just not assuming that everybody understands the power of team, and then celebrating the courage it takes to compete and to, and then also the power of relationships, and show them the power of relationship by being there for them and showing up. Just the consistency of showing up. Older experienced folks have that, you know, and don't underestimate the importance of that because of how up and down their interactions are. So I would say those are probably three ways I would attack it, working with young people. I get the
Yep.
pleasure of working with young people every day.
I love it.
Patty likes when I use my language. Yeah.
That's right. You know, and you and Val have probably both heard me say this. The mayor of Kansas City years ago was a woman, and we had her speak at an event, and she talked about playing sports and how it impacted her. And her line is, sports taught her and teaches people how to win and lose in public. So
Yeah.
to what you said, Court, people, it teaches how to win and lose, which is really important. The in public piece, and now it's a bigger deal with social media. I'm so glad some of the air balls I shot and bricks didn't get like radioed and then out on social media. And, you know, that kind of pressure, it's a whole nother level. So Court, I love what you added to that about the courage. It does take courage now to put yourself out there in front of people. So these are all great messages. For these the coaches and administrators on the call. What about, we all know and we believe, the research shows obviously that, you know, 94% of the women that are leading in all spaces played sports at some point in their lives. And yet we also know the research that young girls are opting out, and that they're opting out, you know, in the mid-teens. You know, what advice do you all have for those that are trying to keep the girls engaged in these spaces? And Val, did your daughters play?
Yes. And what I would say to that is oh gosh, someone said something about multi-sport athlete. Was that you, Coach?
That was me. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, so, and I had someone that's working in the field of athletics, I had to hammer this home with my own children. Like, you don't have to go out and be this phenomenal student athlete. There's a rare bunch that rises to this. I know it seems like everyone's great. If everyone was great, I mean, there wouldn't be these professional athletes. That it would just be like, this is the norm. Like, everyone's great at soccer, and like, that's just how the world works. But I feel again that that's just kind of how they think it has to be. So at some way, if we could all, as one big world, start encouraging, like, be a Valerie that just loved to go be out there running around with her friends and playing volleyball in Umbro shorts, by the way. That's what we had. We had
Lime green. I got
baby.
you. I've got
Umbro
you.
shorts. We didn't wear the booty huggers. We had Umbro shorts.
But Val, to your point,
yeah,
you had fun, and you also learned by being in it. So you don't
I had
have
double
to.
days for fun. Why? I don't know. I should
Yeah.
have quit. It was horrible. But I did it because I enjoyed doing it. So creating an environment that allows, especially young women, to understand there's value beyond just being that starter on their JV volleyball team.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, having the people around that really encourage that. Now, great. If there's someone that has the natural ability that my panelists had in their lives, where it was just great, celebrate that. but definitely create an environment where young women and young men can definitely find a safe space, because I think it's like we say, even with our certain student athletes, the weight room and practice and competition is usually like the only time in their entire day that they are off their phones. So if we could start that at an earlier age where they have that disconnection time, it's just going to make them better people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other tips? And by the way, all of you listening, if you want to throw some questions in the chat, go ahead and do that. I do have a couple, as we got about 10 minutes left. Any other tips for the coaches, Amanda or Court?
Yeah, I would add watch sports, like for the girls to actually watch women. We do have a lot of women's professional sport now happening, or collegiate sport. Go watch it. I think there's so much that can come from that. I mean, in the very basis of community and sharing space with others who enjoy the same sport as you, but also seeing women achieve at that high level is something you can aspire to and emulate and copy. But it also then provides an opportunity to talk about the game, talk about tactics, talk about skills with your coach or with your friends or your parents. And it creates a whole other conversation around sports that isn't necessarily just focused on that girl and her performance day in and day out, but actually that sport is so much broader, and there are high achieving people in it, and there's different things they might see something different that maybe they didn't experience and go out and want to try it themselves. So it creates kind of new avenues for exploration just by watching.
I love
Yeah, and
that.
I would add to that, Patty, that especially for the
Yep.
parents on the call that are trying to encourage their kids to play when they're young, because of this professionalized society. I think people are leaving the sport because they think there's not a path for them, to Val's point. Like, there's just not that's just not where I'm not going to be able to play in college, right? I think speaking their language, which is exercise, just isn't a good idea. It's like a scientifically proven thing, so people that exercise when they're younger continue that process through their life. And those people actually just live longer. Let's just start with that, right? And I think also ultimately to separate yourself from others, even just to try to get into a college, having some experience in something besides just existing will color your story, right? And so it allows you to have more to talk about, to think about, and makes you more interesting, and so I think also for the parents and people that are hoping for more youth participation, I think instead of talking, I think always about all the things it's going to do, like teach you to have resilience and grit, like those are words that my own players are like, I don't need that yet. Like, yet they do, but they don't understand that. But what they do know is that exercise is valuable to their life, and it makes them more interesting, that they'll have more stories, and they've been given feedback, real feedback about their performance, which is really valuable.
Yeah. Okay. We did get some questions. Thanks for that. So let's go through these as quickly as we can. But Court, this first one I want to direct to you.
Okay.
How do you create buy-in in your program? And this is coming from a very small and rural community. They've struggled to maintain a decent sized group of athletes in basketball and cross country. Any tips? And you've done this really well in all of your stops.
Yeah, I think when I was in a small town, I really cared about soccer and basketball and tennis, and I needed enough people who wanted to play it. So I made sure that they understood that their being was more important than their skill set. Just come on the team. I will help make sure everyone has fun. So if it's that part of it, I would say helping people understand that you're needed. And then I think, how do I create buy-in on my teams now? I'll summarize it as brief as I can. I'll be very brief. Is that it's our buy-in, not mine. Right. And we really stress that it doesn't really, I always say, I don't have these grandiose vision statements. The vision is what's on the wall every day. It's what's in the hallway, is not on the wall. And so, we don't really talk about a ton of things. We do them together. And so that also contributes to what our norms are. And every year I say, when we start the year, what are the things that really worked in the past on teams you've been on? And what are the things that really cause problems? And we this new groups get to decide what good we keep, and what not so good we leave. And so I think the buy-in is very much ours and not mine. And I think that's probably true of getting my two 11-year-olds and 9-year-old to believe in doing family chores. It's like it's not my house, it's ours, right? You're not doing it for me. So I would say whenever you can change the words to us, and not mine would be better.
And in the community, so it's and even beyond the team. So if you're in a small town, it's like it's our team, and trying to get other community people involved would be great too. Okay, I've got a question for you, Amanda. And this is going off Val's point. What are ways that they can make non-starters feel value?
You know, it's interesting in soccer. I don't know if you guys do this in other sports, but instead of calling non-starter subs, right, we call them game changers in a lot of instances. I think Jill
Oh, I
Ellis, who
love
was the
that.
coach of our U.S. women's national team, started that some time ago. So I think it's about reframing the role that everyone plays in the team. And whether you're a starter or a game changer, your role is valued and important to the overall team atmosphere. And like what Coach is saying about this is our team, and put team above all else, whatever your role is. And even if you're injured, what you bring to the psychology and the dynamic. And in the professional environment, sometimes those are the players who need to go do media appearances or go do community outreach efforts that then drive more people to become fans and come to games. And that's going to help the team win if they've got the 12th man at home, right? So everyone's role is valued, and communicating that to everyone.
Yeah.
One of the things I really truly believe is that, we just all, I mean, we want to feel valued in our roles. And a lot of time that just comes from communication.
Yep, I love that. Val, I have a question for you, but Court, I want you to add to that, especially in this, I think you have something that's relatable with NIL. If they aren't quite feeling valued, I think they can get more people, they're leaving now, which is different. Are there any other things you want to add to what Amanda said about how you make non-starters feel value?
I mean, we sort of do something similar with the starters versus game changers. And
I
that
love
if you
game
like the
changers.
role, and if you don't love the one you're in, then you got to try to be the other one. But there's no role for the non-engagers basically. And so, everyone's, to steal Val's point or line that everyone's got their story, like, and those matter. So, yeah, the NIL has made it a little tricky because not only you are currently valuing people at a different rate, whether that's because of the positional need or the timing in your program or their overall skill set. And those conversations are personal, but they have to make sense. And so we sort of have had to really have a pro model that it makes sense. Like we have value in ads in this place, and we need a game changer that can come in and provide value, and we're going to value that in a certain form. But I don't have anything earth shattering except to say that I think everyone operates better in clarity. And anytime you're sort of a little bit awkward, it's a whole lot more awkward for the person that you're communicating with. So I always say we just don't have awkward moments in our program. Kind of like if you bring a kid into your office because you're going to talk about how they're not starting them, but it's not a big deal. It's like, then why did you bring them into your office? If it's not a big deal, then just, I'll tell you who's starting and we'll tell you the day of the game. That's how I do it. I'm like, the things that are not big deals, don't make it a big deal, but then tell them it's not a big deal. Right. So I think the clarity of communication, I think, is really important.
Great. Okay, good. And Val, really quickly, since you had daughters participating in sport, one of the questions is, what any gold standard girl-friendly youth sport organizations? BSN dropped some stuff in. They mentioned like Girls on the Run. Any other things that you've heard nationally?
Well, the one resource that we go to a lot, even with our collegiate coaches, is the We Coach organization. They just offer such fantastic training for those that are in coaching, with their workshops, their Zoom calls, whether it's specific to specific, sports that you're coaching, or just even connecting with other coaches. That's the first thing that I go to. Obviously I don't have experience within like the high school space. So I
What
don't know.
about any organizations like when your daughters were in, like for the girls to participate in? Any
Well,
others? And you guys jump in
I
here.
didn't.
Like,
Well, here's a shameless plug for me. I am on the board of Girl Scouts. So
Okay.
there's always great things.
I got kicked out of the Girl Scouts.
Well, maybe you weren't meeting your cookie target. So just joking. We would never do that. So shame on you. No, just joking. But I think I would always say, look in your local community. That's always my first thing. I mean, much to like one of my other points, and I think we've hit on it a few times. The beauty, I think, of any K through 12 sports is it is community driven. So I always, always, always go back to what is in your backyard, what is at your kitchen table already. And I always start there. I mean, whether it's local business owners, alums that are in your community, those are going to be the people I think that, number one, have the most buy-in, that would be really wanting to be a resource for your programs. And you just never know, because it could be something as like Rotary or Toastmasters or the Lions Club, or, name any of the animals, Moose, Elk Lodge, any of those things. And if you're from a small town, you probably know. If you're not, you probably not know what I'm talking about. Any of those kind of established organizations that are already there, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just don't have to. And especially if you're at that K through 12 model, you don't have the time. A lot of times you're looking at coaches that this is their part-time gig, they're volunteering. So you're just looking for a support. So don't try to reinvent, just go and find the resources that are already available to you in your community.
Awesome. Okay. I've got 2 more questions and we're going to do this. We're going to do this very efficiently. I'm going to give each of you 30 seconds on this question. What advice would you give young women that are listening that want to eventually lead? What's your 30-second pitch to them? So Amanda, we're going to start with you.
Well, what I think is interesting about leadership is that we're all leading in our own ways, regardless of what your job is. So first of all, have confidence that you are already a leader in what you're doing. But second, I think be in the spaces with people who are doing what you want to do. When I was looking for a job in global soccer and in player relations, I went to the Women's World Cup in France, and that led to my job moving to Amsterdam and working in labor, right? Because you get in the space with the people who are doing what you're interested in, and you will find your people and find your way.
Love that. Okay, great. Val?
Okay, 30 seconds. So
30 seconds, honey.
I would just say, be your authentic self. That's my one summary line. Never change who you are, because when you do try to fit into a round hole when you're a square or whatever the thing is, you're never going to come through as being authentic. You're not going to feel comfortable in your own skin. And I think already in a lot of rooms as women leaders, you're walking in feeling that way. So even if you're trying to force yourself into being something you're not, it's going to feel even more uncomfortable. So that's always my number one thing. And then always seek out the resources and the support that you need. So whether you've got the 3 kids at home or whether you're moving to a new place, seek out the resources and the support system, because that's what's really going to help you be the best leader that you could be in any environment. The skills will come later.
Court?
I'm not as poetic as all them. I mean, be where your feet are and be really good there. And I didn't know I'd be a college basketball coach. I just knew I loved sport. And honestly, one thing kind of took care of the next. And so to kind of bridge back, I think the doing is learning part, but be where your feet are and be really solid there. And then I think also, so you're kind of doing the work. And then I really think that not understating that fear is an okay place. Like it just is. Like, stability is not for leaders. Like willingness to figure it out is. And so worrying less about what's to be and trusting more the work you're doing. And those people end up in those spots, I think, more often than not.
Outstanding. And one last thing, I normally go through those of you, and I know Val and Courtney have seen me do this when I'm moderating. I take a ton of notes and I like to summarize. I want to hear from each of you the one line that you heard from someone else that you're going to hang on to, because you've all mentioned stuff. Who wants to go first?
I will. I think worded really well is the idea of she needs to own her own story. I think that's something that, as I talk to my players, who everybody wants a different role. The starters want to play more. I mean, everybody sort of wants to know that what they're doing is moving forward, is to and make sure people know, just own your own story.
Love it. Val?
The one I got that resonates with me right now is don't assume people understand the power of a team.
Love it. Love it. Amanda?
Vision, it's what's in the hallway, not what's on the wall.
Oh, love it. I mean, I wrote so much down. But one of the ones was absence of fear as a joke. Like, listen, we're all learning as we go. So you 3 were amazing pennant waves. And I want to thank all of you, Val, Court, and Amanda. for joining us today, leading this great conversation. Thank you to BSN Surge for their leadership and support of girls and women's sports. This session recording will be on BSN Surge on the member platform for you to rewatch and share. Thank you all for being here. Love you three. Keep on. Go change the world. We'll see you later.